Diddy has just been brutally attacked in prison, and new surveillance footage has leaked, showing the violent assault he suffered behind bars. The footage, captured inside the notorious Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, reveals a shocking and chaotic scene as multiple inmates corner Diddy before launching a full-scale attack. Witnesses say tensions had been building for days, with rumors circulating that certain inmates had marked Diddy as a target. When the attack happened, guards rushed in to break it up, but not before serious damage had been done. Diddy was left injured and shaken.
Diddy Combs has been denied bail in connection with the sexual abuse and sex trafficking charges he faces. And as Les Trump reports, the music mogul who once traveled by private jet to all those mansions is now in a jail that is notorious for its bad living conditions.
Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs spent his first night behind bars inside a facility that is being called hell on earth. The Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn is notorious for its appalling living conditions and rampant violence. How bad is it inside this federal lockup? There have been 2 murders, 4 suicides, and numerous stabbings and lockdowns in recent years. It's so out of control inside that 4 federal judges are reportedly refusing to send any more prisoners here. Donald Trump's former fixer, Michael Cohen, spent a harrowing year in federal custody. He says for someone used to a life of luxury like Diddy, prison life is a severe shock.
You have a desk, you have a plastic chair, you have your bed with a 1.5-inch mattress, no pillow, and you also have a locker.
His once powerful presence now reduced to just another inmate trying to survive in one of the most dangerous federal facilities in the country. The Metropolitan Detention Center is infamous for its history of violence. Stabbings, gang-related beatings, and corrupt prison staff have made it one of the most feared places for any high-profile inmate. Over the years, there have been multiple reports of high-profile prisoners being assaulted, some even killed, as gangs and power struggles dominate life behind bars.
After his arrest in New York, Diddy was booked at MDC. Back then, we took a deep dive into MDC's conditions, but they're really worth revisiting. Following Diddy's arrest, his attorney Mark Agnifilo immediately sounded the alarm on MDC, arguing there are some major issues with the jail, citing violence, poor conditions, overcrowding, and even staffing issues. He also cited some startling statistics. 2 inmates have been killed at MDC since June, and at least 4 inmates have died by suicide over the past 3 years. On top of that, 6 staff members have been charged with crimes over the past 5 years. Even with all these questionable stats, it's still common for defendants to be housed at MDC after their arrest, as they're awaiting trial in either Manhattan or Brooklyn. And the jail is no stranger to high-profile inmates either. MDC famously housed R. Kelly, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Sam Bankman-Fried, who's actually there right now.
Diddy, who once lived a life of luxury, is now facing the brutal reality of life inside a maximum security prison where money, fame, and influence mean nothing. Sources inside MDC say that Diddy has been struggling since day one, reportedly isolated from other inmates, but still unable to escape the harsh realities of prison life. According to insider sources, the attack occurred earlier this week in the prison yard, where Diddy was reportedly ambushed by a group of inmates.
Sean Diddy Combs reportedly underwent treatment in a hospital as he continues to await trial on sex trafficking charges. According to Page 6, the 55-year-old was transported from Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, the federal prison where he was sent following his September arrest, late January 30th to undergo an MRI and was then soon returned to police custody later that night. The outlet cites a source as saying that the medical scan was authorized because his knee was bothering him. E! News has reached out to reps for Diddy and the Federal Bureau of Prisons for comment and has not heard back. The Grammy winner's attorney, Mark Agnifilo, tells TMZ, quote, "I cannot comment on anything related to prisoner movements. Also, I'm not commenting on anything related to possible medical issues." Diddy had shared in a since-deleted Instagram post in 2017 that he had undergone his 3rd knee surgery in a year. The Federal Bureau of Prisons has neither confirmed nor denied the reports about Diddy's hospital visit.
The newly leaked surveillance footage, obtained by a prison insider, shows the terrifying moment when Diddy is surrounded and violently assaulted. The video captures Diddy trying to defend himself as inmates punch, kick, and taunt him. Despite his efforts, the attack left him with visible injuries, including bruises, cuts, and a possible broken rib. Since his arrest, Diddy's legal team has been working tirelessly to get him out on bail. arguing that he is in extreme danger and that keeping him in prison could have deadly consequences.
That P. Diddy's on suicide watch tonight. Do your sources confer the same information? Are they saying it was possible?
Hey, real quickly, all that commissary stuff, he's not getting any of that because people in the SHU have an abbreviated list. So he's out of luck. No stake for him. Yeah, he is on suicide watch. This guy thought he would have went home. All of a sudden, he didn't get bond. Remember, the first night that he was there, he was like an overnight guest. When they called his bond hearing, now they checked him into the system, and reality has hit him. And I understand that he has a shrink coming by his cell to see him several times a day. And now there's talk about putting him in, it's like a bubble. It's like a cell that has like a plexiglass wall in it where they have inmates watching you. That's actually their job, to keep an eye on the inmates that are on suicide watch. Another error that I guess some warden told.
However, the judge has already denied multiple bail requests, labeling him a flight risk and stating that the severity of the charges against him requires that he remain in custody. With this new attack caught on camera, Diddy's lawyers may use the footage as another desperate attempt to push for bail, but many legal experts believe it will do little to change the court's decision. The prosecution has remained firm, arguing that Diddy's influence, wealth, and potential to evade justice make him too risky to release.
The indictment was filed on January 30th. Coincidentally, according to the New York Post, that's the same day P. Diddy was taken to a Brooklyn hospital from MDC. MDC is the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. It's where Diddy's been held since his arrest back in September. His team has tried multiple times for bail, but it's always been denied. So that's where Diddy has been for months now, but last week he was taken to the hospital. According to reports from the New York Post, Diddy was transported from MDC in the cover of darkness at about 10 p.m. on January 30th. He was taken to a Brooklyn hospital for an MRI after reporting issues with his knee. This actually isn't the first time we've heard about Diddy's knee either. He's apparently had problems with it since 2003 when he ran the New York Marathon. He even had multiple knee surgeries back in 2017. In a now deleted Instagram post, Diddy shared this photo and wrote, quote, "Just had my final knee surgery. They said I'd never run again. I said the devil is a liar, 2 exclamation points."
Social media has exploded with reactions to the leaked footage, with hashtags like Diddy attacked and prison assault trending worldwide. Fans of the music mogul are expressing outrage and concern, calling for better protection for Diddy while he's behind bars. Many are questioning how someone as high profile as Diddy could be left so vulnerable in prison. At the same time, critics are pointing to the attack as a stark reminder of the consequences of his alleged actions, with some saying he's facing the reality of his choices.
Judge Arun Subramanian shot that down pretty quickly, and it was decided if Diddy was granted bail, he'd be staying in New York, specifically on the Upper East Side in a 3-bedroom apartment. That bail would have come with a $50 million price tag and some major restrictions on Diddy's house arrest. Inside the apartment, there would be 2 live-in guards and another guard downstairs. Diddy wouldn't be allowed to access any phones or the internet unless it was used to contact his legal team. And on top of all of that, there would be a vetted list of people approved to visit Diddy, including his legal counsel and of course his family. Diddy's attorney Mark Agnifilo said there was a 0% chance that Diddy would be violent if he was released, and even called the bail package a, quote, very, very rigorous set of conditions. This part is wild. He said it was even more strict than the MDC jail. But Judge Subramanian, he didn't bite on that, and Diddy's bail was denied for the 3rd time.
Meanwhile, the footage has sparked a frenzy online, with fans and critics alike questioning whether this attack was random or something far more calculated. Some insiders believe that Diddy was specifically targeted, either as a warning or as part of a larger prison power play. Others speculate that this attack could be linked to his past legal troubles and the enemies he may have made over the years. Whatever the case, one thing is clear. Diddy is not safe, and if he remains behind bars, this may not be the last time he finds himself in a life-threatening situation.
Diddy's mental health has come into question while he's been at MDC. When he first arrived, he was on suicide watch, which the U.S. Department of Justice National Institute of Corrections describes as supervisory precautions taken for suicidal inmates that require frequent observation. Diddy's suicide watch was only temporary, though. He was housed in a special protective unit of the jail after that for the first few weeks of his stay. But Diddy right now is in Gen Pop, meaning general population, the place where majority of the inmates stay. And that's where he apparently had this meltdown over the holidays, at least according to one source. Another source, though, disagrees with all of this. They say Diddy is staying strong in jail despite missing his family a great deal at Christmas, which is a time he often spends with his children. But however Diddy spent the holidays, there's still a lot of questions in the case of Sean Combs.
Let's take a closer look at how this story unfolded. Diddy, whose real name is Sean Combs, was arrested and charged earlier this year following a series of allegations that have rocked the music industry. The charges range from workplace harassment to more serious claims of abuse, and the case has been one of the most closely watched legal battles in recent memory. Diddy has consistently denied the allegations, calling them false and defamatory, but his life in prison has become a focal point of the ongoing drama.
Okay, so talking about Diddy, last time I talked to you, he was in a different part of MDC, a secure location for potentially high-profile inmates. Now, could it be that P. Diddy is in Gen Pop or general population?
Yes, I'm assuming that after doing a threat assessment on him after being there for several weeks, was determined that he could be housed in a general population unit. And it's been my experience when I was there, several years ago. We have a east and a west building, and typically we had, since it's a detention center, you have all types of individuals there. High security, low security, minimum, and then you have folks like former law enforcement officers, and then folks that were may have been compromised. And you also have sex offenders that are detainees. So what we would do. Sometimes we would house some of our high-profile individuals with former law enforcement who are facing charges.
So what happens next? Will Diddy's legal team use this attack to push for emergency bail? Or is this just the beginning of an even more dangerous chapter in his story? Right now, his future remains uncertain. And with tensions inside MDC reaching a boiling point, his time in prison is only getting more dangerous by the day. The world is watching. And as more details emerge, the truth about what really happened inside that prison cell will eventually come to light. The leaked surveillance footage, which was reportedly recorded by prison security cameras, reveals the harsh and dangerous conditions Diddy is facing behind bars.
Because when it comes to the trial, the defense and the prosecution, they have been overwhelmed with discovery, terabytes of data that has likely resulted in possibly an information overload. There's a lot of information here. But one thing the defense says it doesn't have is a complete list of witnesses the government plans to call. And without that, the attorneys are saying, we won't know what we're up against and we can't properly prepare a defense. So they've submitted a letter asking the judge overseeing this criminal case, Judge Arun Subramanian, to finally rule on a motion for a bill of particulars, which was filed months ago. So to really understand what's going on here, we actually got to go all the way back to October, what was going on the docket at that time. Because at that time, and even now, Combs has been locked up in the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. And back in October, he was there for several weeks. He was arrested in New York in September pursuant to a grand jury indictment from the Southern District of New York. And the main allegations from prosecutors are that he used his wealth and his influence to intimidate people into performing sex acts with commercial sex workers.
In the video, he is seen trying to shield himself as inmates taunt and physically assault him. The attack is said to have been fueled by rumors and allegations circulating within the prison, with inmates viewing Diddy as a symbol of corruption and privilege. Friends and associates of Diddy have been quick to express their outrage, calling the situation unacceptable and inhumane. They argue that Diddy, despite the allegations against him, deserves to be treated with basic human dignity and protected from harm.
And the defense noted in their letter to the judge, quote, this case is unique, in part because of the number of individuals levying allegations against Mr. Combs due to his celebrity status, wealth, and the publicity of his previously settled lawsuit, and the grand jury leaks and false inflammatory statements by the DHS agents as outlined in our previous motion. This has had a pervasive ripple effect, resulting in a torrent of allegations by unidentified complainants spanning from the false to outright absurd. Essentially, it's how do we know who's going to be part of this criminal case when there's been already so many lawsuits filed against Sean Combs, so many accusations. We got to be clear about what we're defending against. And by the way, as you heard, the defense had previously accused the government of leaking information to the press and the public, something the U.S. Attorney's Office strongly denied. And since then, Combs is faced with even more lawsuits in both federal and state court as more Jane and John Does came forward to accuse him of rape and sexual assault.
Adding even more tension to the situation, sources inside MDC have revealed that this wasn't just a random prison fight. It was an orchestrated attack. Insiders claim that certain factions within the prison had been plotting against Diddy since the moment he arrived, seeing him as an easy target due to his high-profile status. Some inmates allegedly saw him as a symbol of wealth and privilege, making him a prime target for intimidation and violence. Others believe that his past associations and legal troubles made him vulnerable to revenge attacks from individuals with long-standing grudges.
And the defense contends that the prosecution should be required to identify victims for several reasons. First, without clarity from the government, Mr. Combs has no way of knowing which allegations the government is relying on for purposes of the indictment. Other than victim one, there's no way for Mr. Combs to undermine who the other unidentified alleged victims are, the number of potential alleged victims, and the length of time alleged in the indictment both weigh in favor of a bill of particulars. By the way, there's been a superseding indictment, so now there are 3 numbered victims in this case, victim 1, victim 2, victim 3. But anyway, going back to the letter, it says, moreover, to the extent Mr. Combs is forced to mount a defense against criminal allegations that the government does not seek to prove at trial, he's entitled to know that. Basically, the suggestion is if the government knows that an allegation from somebody is false, they need to tell the defense that. Quote, absent a bill of particulars, the government is forcing him unfairly to play a guessing game, one made all the more challenging by the onslaught of baseless allegations that desperate plaintiffs are lodging at him.
However, others close to the case suggest that Diddy's struggles in prison are a direct result of his alleged actions and the notoriety surrounding his case. Legal experts weigh in, suggesting that the attack could have serious implications for Diddy's legal battle, potentially swaying public opinion and even influencing the judge's decision. At the same time, prison authorities are facing intense scrutiny for failing to protect Diddy from such threats. Reports indicate that guards had been warned about a possible attack on Diddy.
Prosecution asked for a little bit more time to respond to the defense's letter, which the judge granted. And then at the end of October, the government submitted its own filing, which included some details about its investigation so far, the sheer volume of information they were gathering. It reads, to date, the grand jury has issued over 300 subpoenas, and the government has interviewed over 50 witnesses, several of whom testified before the grand jury. Since the defendant's arrest a little over a month ago, the government has made 3 significant productions of discovery material, which include the following categories of materials: all search warrants and supporting affidavits, hotel, financial, and communication records produced pursuant to grand jury subpoenas, and electronically stored information from over 60 of the defendant's own devices and iCloud accounts, including, among other things, text messages, audio and video recordings, photographs, and documents which the defendant had requested be prioritized. These materials contain additional details about the allegations against the defendant, including, for example, specific allegations relating to multiple victims in search warrant affidavits and communications with victims and witnesses.
But despite these warnings, no extra precautions were taken. When the attack finally happened, it was swift and brutal. Diddy was reportedly in the common area when a group of inmates approached him, engaging in a brief verbal confrontation before things turned physical. The surveillance footage shows at least 3 inmates attacking Diddy simultaneously, punching and kicking him before security intervened. Some reports suggest that a weapon may have been involved, but prison officials have yet to confirm whether Diddy was stabbed or not.
January 8th and 9th, 2025, representatives of Mr. Combs sent letters informing defendants Ample and NBCU that the trailer included false and defamatory statements and urged them to take down the trailer and refrain from publishing the documentary. This is kind of like a cease and desist letter before there's any kind of litigation. Defendants Ample and NBCU did not respond. So Combs' team is saying, look, we gave you guys plenty of heads up that what you were about to put out there for the world to see is not only wrong, but in our opinion, it's defamatory. And when you use that language, that would signal to anybody that potentially you will take legal action. But according to them, the defendants here didn't respond. We'll see what NBCU and Ample has to say, but that allegation the allegation that they're making, and that is the cause of action that Combs is suing under, defamation. I want to talk about that because defamation, generally speaking, is a false statement that is published, and if you're dealing with a famous...
This isn't just a story about Diddy. It's about the broader issues of safety and accountability within the prison system. The attack has sparked important conversations about how high-profile inmates are treated and whether the system is equipped to protect them. Some are calling for reforms to ensure that all prisoners, regardless of their status, are kept safe from harm. Others argue that Diddy's situation is a consequence of his alleged actions and that he must face the realities of prison life. In the aftermath of the attack, Diddy was placed in medical care within the prison.
Friday night by NBC News. Now, this dismissal comes after NBC News sat down exclusively with the accuser in an interview and subsequently found inconsistencies in her claims. One being that she said that her father drove 5 hours to pick her up after the alleged assault, but when reached by NBC News at the time, he could not remember the incident. She also claimed that she met Benji and Joel Madden at the house party, but they were touring in the Midwest at the time. When asked about her inconsistencies, she stood by her allegations. Combs, who is currently behind bars awaiting his criminal trial on sex trafficking, said that the dismissal is, quote, another confirmation that these lawsuits are built on falsehoods. He's been sued by multiple people who allege sexual misconduct, claims he denies. Peter, Laura?
All right, Chloe Malas, thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching. And don't forget, you can catch the Today Show every morning on NBC or take Today when you're on the go. Just follow the Today podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify.
But questions remain about his safety. His legal team is now demanding an immediate transfer to a safer facility, arguing that MDC has proven incapable of protecting their client. However, the judge overseeing his case has made it clear that Diddy will not receive any special treatment. Instead, prison officials are said to be conducting an internal investigation to determine whether there was any negligence in preventing the attack. As the case continues to unfold, one question looms large. What's next for Diddy?
So as the court's order mentions, interlocutory appeals, they are, quote, granted sparingly and only in exceptional cases. But there's a bigger issue why an interlocutory appeal doesn't work here. The court writes, granting permission for an interlocutory appeal would not accelerate the conclusion of this litigation because this litigation has now reached a final conclusion. Accordingly, plaintiff's motion for permission to file an interlocutory appeal is denied. Basically, it's moot. It's over. There's no point of it. Then there's the third order on sanctions. So Combs' lawyers want Cardello Smith to be punished in some way for what they say amounts basically to harassment and extortion. We've talked about this before on other sidebars, that if you're a lawyer or you're representing yourself, you can't file frivolous claims and frivolous complaints and frivolous motions. They have to be backed up by the facts, the law. They can't be done just to harass or intimidate anybody. Otherwise, you're going to get on the bad side of the court and you'll be punished.
Will the attack lead to changes in his prison conditions? Or will he continue to live in fear? And how will this incident impact his legal case and public image? For now, all eyes are on the prison system and the courtroom as the world waits to see how this story will unfold. This incident has also reignited debates about the conditions within MDC, which has long been criticized for its lack of security, frequent violent incidents, and reports of abuse by both inmates and guards.
A person alleging to be Sean Combs seemingly admits to raping Cardello Smith and admits to pinning other rape cases on Cardello Smith and promises to pay the inmate $35 million. Wow, I can't believe that Sean Combs would admit to all this. My gosh. Well, I want to take a look at this document that was put together by Cardello Smith, which the defense says is complete nonsense. Remember, this is supposed to be in Sean Combs' voice. It reads, I agree to the settlement offered to this plaintiff in the original amount of $35 million, and the only reason I am disclosing it is because plaintiff wanted it made public in order for me to not fight the case anymore and to remove any hint of denial of plaintiff's claim of sexual assault I did upon him and other measures that have been discussed throughout previous meetings at the facilities over the years when I met with plaintiff and my agents met with plaintiff at various prisons.
Some legal analysts are questioning whether placing Diddy in such a volatile environment was a deliberate move to break him down emotionally and physically. Others argue that high-profile inmates are always at risk in general population, and that Diddy's presence in MDC was bound to cause tensions from the start. Meanwhile, Diddy's family and supporters are growing increasingly concerned about his well-being. Close friends and allies in the industry are reportedly scrambling to exert pressure on the legal system to grant him bail, fearing that another attack could be fatal.
Diddy Combs, the case has been voluntarily dropped by the anonymous woman, according to documents obtained by E! News February 14th. Additionally, the lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice, meaning the plaintiff, as well as her lawyers Tony Busby and Antigone Curtis, won't be able to bring the case to court again, per the filing. The document adds, counsel for the plaintiff have discussed this matter with counsel for each defendant, who acknowledge and consent to this submission. Following the case's dismissal, Carter, whose motion to reveal the name of the plaintiff was denied in December, shares in a statement that he feels like the court's decision was a victory. He says in a February 14th statement shared to his label Rock Nation's X account, "The frivolous, fictitious, and appalling allegations have been dismissed. This civil suit was without merit and never going anywhere. The fictional tale they created was laughable, if not for the seriousness of the claims." Still, the 55-year-old says the win doesn't erase the repercussions that he and his wife Beyonce, as well as their 13-year-old daughter Blue Ivy.
There are even rumors that certain celebrities and business moguls are reaching out behind the scenes to negotiate Diddy's safety or relocation. Whether these efforts will have any impact remains to be seen, but one thing is certain. Diddy's time in prison has turned into a nightmare, and the longer he stays inside, the greater the risk to his life. The leaked surveillance footage has also fueled speculation about what really happened behind the scenes. Some reports claim that Diddy had been clashing with certain inmates over access to privileges within the prison, leading to rising tensions.
To apply baby oil to plaintiff's skin during the performances, which plaintiff did. After applying the baby oil, plaintiff became unusually sleepy, disoriented, confused, exhausted, drowsy, weak, sluggish, numb, and alarmed by the sensation of being trapped in his own body. Plaintiff felt a heavy sensation behind his eyes and felt that moving his body became more difficult and exhausting. So first of all, baby oil, lubricant, very reminiscent of what's being alleged in Sean Combs' criminal case and other lawsuits as well about potential drugging. But also the baby oil, this is important. I remember in another lawsuit filed by a different John Doe from last year, there was a claim in that case that Combs had laced baby oil with the date rape drug GHB. Now, this complaint continues. While plaintiff was in this disoriented state, Combs instructed him to perform acts that were outside the scope of the agreed upon performance and limitations.
Others suggest that he may have been set up by corrupt guards who allowed the attack to happen. While there is no concrete evidence to support these claims, the fact remains that the footage is disturbing and has left many wondering just how deep the corruption within MDC really goes. With public pressure mounting and social media ablaze with debates about Diddy's fate, the question now is whether this attack will change anything about his legal situation. Will the judge reconsider his bail conditions given the obvious danger he faces?
February 6th, Free Puff, referring to one of Combs' former stage names, before adding in a separate message, "Puff, we love you." And the 47-year-old also provides insight into why he believes Combs, who pleaded not guilty to federal charges of racketeering, sex trafficking by force, fraud or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution following his September arrest, should be released from prison. He says in another message on the platform that same day, just for clarity, they're trying to make an example out of Puff. Kim Kardashian's ex-husband continues in an additional post, "Who's ever after Puff, we gotta find out exactly who they are." And Ye doesn't only come to the defense of Combs in his controversial internet rant, he also claps back at criticism of his wife Bianca Censori's naked look at the 2025 Grammys. He says in a February 7th post, "People say the red carpet look was her decision. Yes, I don't make her do nothing she doesn't want to, but she definitely wouldn't have been able to do it without my approval, you stupid-ass woke pawns." The Yeezy founder goes on to allege that he has, quote, dominion over his wife.
Or will he be forced to endure more violence as he awaits trial? Legal experts remain divided on the matter, with some believing that the court will maintain its stance on keeping him locked up, while others argue that the risks to his life could justify a reconsideration. As Diddy recovers from his injuries, his next move will be critical. Will he continue fighting for bail, or will his legal team push for an emergency transfer to another facility? More importantly, will this attack serve as a warning of worse things to come?
Tapes over to Sean Combs and his team. And with that in mind, this is not the only issue that came up. There was another ruling from the judge we got to talk about. There was another thing the judge decided just now. We want to talk about it, and it concerns the same issue. It concerns the tapes. You see, the prosecution weeks ago responded to the defense's letter, but they didn't focus so much on turning over the alleged sex tapes. They didn't want to turn them over, but rather what they focused on, what they accused the defense of, is they alleged the defense violated the protective order. They argued that the defense revealed just way too much about the content of these videos, even though the defense redacted certain portions of the videos in their letter to the court that we all saw. It was a public letter. But they say that's not enough. The prosecution argued that under the protective order, no portion of the videos should have been filed on that public docket.
One thing is clear. Diddy is in a fight for survival, and with each passing day, the dangers surrounding him only grow stronger. The world is watching, and as more details emerge, the full truth behind this violent prison attack will eventually be revealed. What do you think? Was this attack planned, or was it just another case of prison violence spiraling out of control? Will Diddy's legal team be able to secure his release? Or is this just the beginning of a long and dangerous prison sentence? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more updates on this developing story.